Hello from Ijevsk. This is a podcast Pigeon of Peace where we do discuss awesome skills of troubleshooters. Watch, listen, and check the description below for the details. Let's talk about psycholinguistic and let's start with the definition.
Psyche is a soul. Linguistic, it's about our tongue. So how to touch the soul by the language. It is not easy. Uh, People could be lost in their labyrinths because of their hard thoughts. For example, they want to be nice, friendly, clever, but sometimes they will hit the wall because they will learn that they are not the best, not the smartest. And in this case, it could be like, I don't know, like a whirlpool, whirlpool, yes?
Or like a vortex. Yes.
It could be like a whirlpool, and you will drawn up to the bottom, and you will lose your self-estimation, and you will think that you are not worth a penny. But you will find people who will shine like a sun, and they will say, "Come on, you could be good to someone." And there is a saying in Russian language: if you think that no one loves you, you should know that in your stomach there are like at least 3 kilo of bacteria, and they live with you all the time, and they embrace by their small legs and arms because they like you. So someone definitely like you. If you have a pet, if you have a child, and you have a hard day, you'll come home and you will play with those creatures, and you will become lucky. But if you're alone, if you're old one, and you should provide your time with TV, it is a bad situation. You know, scientists all over the world sometimes make researches, and they discover it, and there is, I don't know, like maybe 15 or 20 publications that our TV is try to go to put us in a deep upset, because if they will show like sitcoms and some humor, we will not see them as long as it should be to see the commercials. But if they will show like terror, like car accidents, like plane crashes, like hurricanes, like typhoons, tsunami, we will be like hypnotized, and we will sit in chairs and will consume all these ads. And this is source of income for TV channels. So if you will live just with TV, with computer, with gadgets, you will lose faith in yourself. And the help could come with people who know psycholinguistic, or with books which are filled with the psycholinguistic wisdom.
Well, this is true. Sometimes when you're walking around, it feels like that all of the screens works as a like a psychomagnets that actually drains whatever energy and time people have. Well, if we switch to psycholinguistics, so basically, let's say we are on the side of the person who wants to, like help or achieve certain goals with another person, how we should act, because, well, let's start first with the tongue. Different people speak different language. It's also might be like the culture, how we should research or like do a quick examination of our of the person that we are going to work with.
Maxim, you will not understand because you're quite cultural person and also polite. But when I was working in Germany, they were too rude for me because they were speaking English. This is not their native language, and they were saying some short sentences, and it was not comfortable. When you're saying, you make it like camouflaging. You use a lot of equivoques and euphemisms. So if even you want to say something hard, it will not happen in this way. But sometimes people which don't know language, they could be quite rush. First, second, sometimes people could be angry, not not about you, but about the world. For example, I often say to people who are tradesmen or salesmen, their client has no history. If you are offended by someone else, never say to the next customer something bad, because he will not, or she will not understand. So start as from the scratch, from the green field, from the newly opened door. And third, sometimes you will have a bad mood because you gone to the bed too late. Maybe you have no breakfast, or even maybe you have no coffee. I have been working to Alpha Bank for 20 years, and last 3 years I was working in Moscow, and I found that people in Moscow who live not in the middle of the city but in suburbs, they were getting to the office by the train, by the some city cats. It's okay to say.
City caps, probably.
Okay, and they are so tired and they couldn't work without a cup of the coffee, so they are quite angry, and it is not worthy to start conversation before they will make first sip.
Well, then when we speak to people, yes, let's say we know what they want to achieve, but then if we do sometimes, for example, when I was working at mobile banking and I had to speak with a lot of external salespeople or someone who just like represent the technology. So at certain point of time, especially when the live conversation happens, it feels they were using like all of this NLP tricks, like they would try to shadow you, they would try to, like use your name a lot. And at certain point of time, you get sort of like a sick of it because you do know what exactly they do. You don't know why they do. And you would expect a little finesse, a little like a subtleness, not because of, snobbish, but because, hey, come on, just, like get to the point. Don't really do like a cheap gifts or whatever. Just like, let's talk business or, like something like this. And sometimes we might be in that exact position when we in need, whether we want to offer help, whether we want to offer something, we do not want our like mechanics or whatever gets revealed. So how to act and navigate in that kind of situations?
To be honest, when you will compare, for example, Russia and Ukraine, in Ukraine, it is unusual to name someone during the conversation, but in Russia, it would be like at least each 5 minutes you will be summoned by the name, and the reason is to attract your attention, because people in the huge cities, they are quite distracted and they will lose the нить беседы, the thread of the conversation.
Conversation.
Okay, so and also if people will read a lot of books from NLP and some other stuff, yes, they will pronounce some phrases, and if you will hear them for very first time, you will think, oh, it's a nice construction, but then you will realize that it means nothing. So a lot of people, they are just empty ones. When I was working, for example, with Americans, early at the morning, they will ask you, what's up? What is going on? And how are you? And from my point of view, I should explain what is going on, but no one would listen. So after a short period of time, I also retake this habit, and I was also saying, how are you, but without intention to listen the answer. And in my country, in Ukraine at this time, it was quite rude. The same would be, for example, in speaking with English people. I don't know how to say it in English, but there is a saying in Russian language, something like it is like a soft mat, but it would be very hard to sleep.
Yeah, maybe it's like a covered censorship or something like this. Usually they use abbreviatures like a BS or something like this, or like FU, sort of this stuff. So when we speak about like people who just like trying to pretend or like trying to walk into the shoes, probably we might be speaking about the scale. So let's say like you're working with a lot of different people and you might be using the same technique. So funny enough, maybe 1 week ago I was in another city, and there was it was like an open area. I was sitting there with my friends, and apparently the music started playing. They bring the cake, there was like a candle, and they were like sitting the birthday song. So I was feeling, oh, it's like very nice and warm. Then 5 minutes later, exactly exactly the same song plays, exactly the same cakes appears, but for another person. And everyone, like in the friends, in the circle of friends who were surrounded me, they were saying like, yeah, it's very nice. And I was thinking, actually, what the first person think, because now he feels like less unique. So the moment you start, someone else like sees your, like the way you speak to people, like exactly you said, like use the same phrases, they might be feeling they've been cheated or whatever. So whether it's is necessary to use like unique words, like use individual approach, or maybe like the timing to make sure that, like it's scaled, or maybe there are other ways to make sure that person knows that you kind of like surrounding them with your attention.
Yes, you quite approached to the point. When you will talk with some people, they will pronounce a very fancy words. For example, they will say, "Maxim, you are unbelievable," or maybe "You are the best person," or maybe "You are cleverest I have ever seen." And at this point, you will think, "Oh, I am unique, and maybe I'm worth something." But then, when you will hear the same phrases in your presence, which was given by the same person, but to another people, at this point you will think, ah, come on, this people is trying to inflate the words. I know how to say, снижать стоимость, inflates, yes, inflates
Or
the
decline,
words.
decay.
So it worth nothing. And at this point, you will understand, okay, I am not so great and they are not so polite. So yes, it's good one. But for example, I have a dentistry and a lot of surgeons and dentists, and sometimes I make them corrections. I was saying, okay, never say to the clients the same words. For example, hey, handsome, or something like this. And they were even don't notice that they pronounce just usual words. They were thinking that they warmly greet people who enter their workplace. But yes, it's happened. So each time you should be intense and to remember which words to use. For example, you could say to one person that this person is green, another one is yellow, and another one is blue.
Well, funny enough, I remember that when I was going to the gym in Singapore, the trainer that I was working with, he always would call me like, "Hey, champion." So I feel like, okay, at least, like someone knows that I will be great or whatever, like in physical activity that I do. It helps, but at a certain point of time, you actually, yeah, as you rightfully said, it feels like it's getting inflated. And if we in the conversation, when we feel, okay, it should be ended, it should be, like aborted, or because the person is not in the mood of receiving, and maybe even vice versa, they're actually in the mood of attacking or getting offended or like closing in. So how exactly we should end up, round up, or like close this conversation politely, and should we leave the room for continuation?
Several times I was flying by Delta Airlines in USA, and it was a film. I don't know the name, but it was with George Clooney, something like Going Up or something like this. He was playing the man who was firing people all over the country, and I was listening this movie, and I was just trying to understand how they pronounce words. But then I was in a situation when my client was firing people from his plant, and he was using almost the words which was pronounced by George Clooney, something, "This is nothing personal, just business." And suddenly the person exploded and says, "Yes, for you it's just a business, but for me it's quite personal. I have a wife, I have a household, I have my credits and something like this." And at this point I was thinking, how often I use the words which was explaining to the people that I should leave them on the island and my ship will go to the ocean. Yes, and I would put those people in very hard position, and I should find some words. And it is not easy because all words would be not trustworthy. They would be like manipulations, because everyone think that I am unique and I should be on the board. But there is also the saying in American language and Russian language, something like this, that 80% people will, 20% people will do all the job, but 80% people think that they are those 20%.
Well, I would say it's like a truly enough. Then my last question will be how knowing about psycholinguistic would help to make this world a better place.
I would say very strange words, but I think that it is quite useful for yourself. For example, I was running several times of ultra marathon and ultra trail, and it is not easy. Sometime after 30 kilometers, you have no power, no energy. Your brain is going to say you, okay, this is just a competition. You could step aside, and no one will know that you was participation this execution, but you should speak with some languages with your conscience, something like this. Okay, I would run to the next tree, I would run next mile, I would run until I have around number of minutes, and then suddenly you realize that second breeze is opened and you could run 20 kilometers more. And it could be hot, it could be hard, but then you will say to yourself another words, something like pain is temporary but glory is forever. And if you have a lot of those phrases, maybe it would help you to cross the finish line. So if you know some mantras, some good principles, they would help in the darkest time.
Well, words have a power, and we reviewed the skill of psycholinguistic and how it could be helpful for you. Stay in peace.